Okay, go ahead.
So let me count you out.
Wait. Hi, my name's Dan Skinkis, and I have a story to tell. You know, it's amazing when you walk with Jesus, this walk that we do over years of journeys and daily walks with Him. And sometimes you're so happy, and other times you're so sad and depressed. But He never leaves you or forsakes you. He's always there. He's always walking with you. And it brought to my mind all the people that I have met over the years and all of their stories and their life and how God has changed their life, and some were in such a bad state they would backslide, and God would never leave them, and they come back to God. And I'd like to talk about Rosemary today. I met Rosemary some probably 10 years ago, and she was a mother of 9 children, raised 9 children. And what made her so unique was that she had a not always there mate that would be on the road and then forget about his family and then come in and remember his family. And she had a hard road with 9 children. And the way I heard the story about Rosemary was the children, a lot of times, they hardly had anything to eat. And in this whole process of growing up in this environment, there was a religious element there that would sort of not encourage or bring the spirits up. It was sort of like sort of a condemning spirit because the husband wasn't around, and so these children grew up in this environment of survival, and the environment of survival sort of tempered a lot of their attitudes about life. Most of them became quite successful. I believe 3 of the boys went into Vietnam and came back all in one piece. And God sort of kept his family together, and she was a disciplinarian because she had to be, with all of these children. So some of the children in certain stages of this development of a family, and as they grew, they had some opinions about their mother, and some were negative and some had positive, and you had this whole mixture of comments that I heard about Mom. And as I got to know her, she was quite elderly, but still had some interaction with me and was capable. And we sort of had some good times together and laughed. And, you know, it's a funny thing how God works. It's amazing. I found a Bible, and it was... his name always slips by me. He was a healer in Oklahoma, built this beautiful college and hospital, and Oral Roberts. And as some of the children told me that she went to his crusades. But it was sort of like vague, and I couldn't get a handle on it. Is she a Christian or not a Christian? And this went on for years, and I never was able to determine that. And so in her end days, she lived till she was 95. And Pat, my wife, that was her mother. And so Pat has places to talk about where her mother was a vibrant young lady, beautiful young lady, and however all the family thought she was just gorgeous, and and she would work 3 jobs sometimes to just keep this family together. And they would move they moved to Michigan and moved onto a farm where they would farm the land just to survive. And whenever there'd be some sort of a negative comment about her, I would stand up and say, "You got to be kidding me. This woman, 9 children, raising them and not allowing those children to leave and keeping them all together like a mother hen amazed me." She was always my hero, and I thought, oh my God, people today, I don't know if they had that tenacity to take care of this family and struggle. So we were always worried. We'd put her in a convalescent home for a weekend so we could. I married Pat, and her mother came with a deal, and that was fine with me. And we would take her to a convalescent home for a weekend and be worried constantly. And then we would hear, "Oh, she's really not doing good." So we would go there, and she looked like, I remember looking at her like, "Oh my God, she's dying," and we'd both be crying. And the next day we'd walk in, and there she was eating at the table. It'd be like, we thought she was dying, and that probably occurred like 5 or 8 times. We would cry, she would be there all perfect again, and the day finally comes where we get the call from Mary Foster, who was taking care of her somewhat at the time, and said, "I think Mom's passing." And we thought, oh, we always think she's passing. But this time the reality of that was at the doorstep, that she was passing. So we called the family, and some of the family came from Oregon and different places. And she was still alive but unaware. She was going down that other side, and so we were all in the room, and you know how you get attached and you don't know you were attached? You got attached. God attached you somehow to another human being. And Pat was there, and she was sort of taking her last breath, and at first it was eerie, and then it wasn't. It was like, wow. And I'll never forget this until I die. She's within the last 2 breaths. And Pat says, "Hold Mom, hold her." And I had that little lady in my arms. And I remember this feeling of her passing, going. It was like going. But the crazy thing about it is, I knew where she was going. She's going with Jesus. And I looked around the room, and I said to all her daughters, and she's gone. Mom's gone. And none of them were believers. And I said, "She's with Jesus." And they're thinking, yeah, this crackpot Christian dude, he's like off the Richter. But there she was, gone. Now the story of a few of the Oral Roberts meetings people start remembering that Mom was attending like a non-denom church, and she wasn't a church goer. But she would, at times in her life. So I always thought how we perceive Christians. You get the Lord, you go to Bible, you go to school, or you go to Bible studies, then you go to church, and then you. Some people just don't have that in their life cycle while you're raising 9 children, trying to be that prototype Christian that does it all right, you know. But I really have learned something. God showed me that day that, you know what? I anoint who I anoint. And that woman,
You're listening to I've Got a Story to Tell with Dan Skinkis. We'll be right back after these messages. Christmas Eve. It's time for families. It's time for music. It's time for stories. Most of all, though, it's a time to celebrate God's incredible love for us in the life, the death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. For us. The wonder of the miracle of Emmanuel, God with us, the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ, all are welcome to come join us in rejoicing on Friday, December 24th at 7 o'clock p.m. in the sanctuary of First Presbyterian Church. So come, as the old hymn says, come and behold him, born the King of Angels. O come, let us adore him.
Night Off the Streets provides a place for homeless to sleep, out of the cold. We need your help. I had no intention of volunteering. Then I did, because it needed to be done. The miracle is that I have been more blessed than they. Won't you share a little of your time to give someone a warm place to go overnight?
You're listening to I've Got a Story to Tell with Dan Skinkis. We'll be right back after these messages.
first of all, birthing 9 children. And you know what? When she passed, her blood pressure, her cholesterol, all of her body functions would be better than mine, way better than mine. And the doctors kept saying, you know, we're going to have a hard time keeping her on hospice because she's like a 25-year-old woman, you know, her body functions, her cholesterol level. And, you know, it's definitely a Holy Spirit God intervention that I saw in my life. And you know what? It wasn't some big meeting somewhere. It wasn't in a church service. It was in a little bedroom crammed with 5 or 6 people. And God shows up.
I've Got a Story to Tell with Dan Skinkis is a Presbypod production of Aunt Betty's Studios, a ministry of First Presbyterian Church, Carson City.